There comes a moment in a woman's life when she becomes tired. Not tired in her body, but tired in her spirit. Tired of repeating what she already said. Tired of defending choices that belong to her. Tired of proving that her heart was sincere to people committed to misunderstanding it. For years, she may have believed that one more explanation would bring peace. One more conversation would create understanding. One more sacrifice would finally make people recognize her value. But then something changes. She stops arguing. She stops chasing. She stops standing before people with evidence of her goodness in her hands. And the world calls her silent. But they do not understand that her silence is not weakness. Her silence is the sound of a woman returning to herself. There comes a time when a woman must examine why she feels compelled to explain every decision she makes. Why does she feel the need to defend her boundaries, justify her silence, prove her intentions, and convince everyone that her heart is good? Often, the answer is not communication. It is approval. She is not always explaining because clarity is needed. Sometimes she is explaining because she is afraid of being misunderstood, rejected, criticized, or abandoned. This pattern usually begins quietly. A woman learns that acceptance seems easier when she keeps people comfortable. She becomes careful with her words. She softens every refusal. She gives long reasons for needing space. She apologizes before expressing a need. She tries to make every decision understandable to everyone around her. Eventually, she begins living as though every choice requires permission. But a life controlled by approval is not a free life. You cannot fulfill your purpose while constantly checking whether everyone agrees with your direction. You cannot build confidence while placing your identity in the hands of people whose opinions change according to their convenience. Today they may praise you. Tomorrow they may criticize the very quality they once admired. If their approval becomes the foundation of your peace, their disapproval will always have the power to shake you. This does not mean you should reject advice, avoid accountability, or stop communicating. Wise people listen. Mature people explain decisions when those decisions genuinely affect others. Healthy relationships require honesty and mutual understanding, but there is a difference between responsible communication and repeatedly defending your right to exist as yourself. Responsible communication says, "I want you to understand my position." Approval seeking says, "I cannot be at peace until you approve of my position." That difference changes everything. Some people ask questions because they care about you. Others ask questions because they want an opportunity to challenge, pressure, or exhaust you. A respectful person may disagree with your answer, but they will still recognize your right to make it. A controlling person will keep questioning you until you become tired enough to surrender. You must learn to identify the pattern. Have you already explained yourself clearly? Have you answered honestly? Have you accepted responsibility for the part that belongs to you? If you have, then repeating the same explanation 10 more times will not create understanding in a person who is committed to disagreement. More words cannot always solve a problem created by unwillingness. This is where emotional maturity begins. You stop believing that perfect wording can change every mind. You stop treating each misunderstanding as an emergency. You stop running behind people, trying to repair an image of yourself that they have chosen to distort. You realize that some people do not need another explanation. They need your decision to remain firm. The woman who constantly explains herself may think she is protecting the relationship, but sometimes she is slowly weakening her relationship with herself. Every time she betrays her own judgment to avoid someone's disappointment, she teaches herself that another person's comfort is more important than her inner truth. Every time she says yes after clearly wanting to say no, she loses a little confidence in her own voice. Self-respect is built when your actions begin agreeing with your values. When you say you need rest, take the rest. When you say a conversation is becoming disrespectful, step away from it. When you say a certain behavior is unacceptable, do not continue rewarding that behavior with unlimited access. Your boundary gains power through consistency, not through the length of your explanation. Many women are afraid that fewer explanations will make them appear cold, arrogant, or selfish. But clarity is not cruelty. A simple answer can still be kind. A firm no can still be respectful. Silence can still be compassionate when everything necessary has already been said. You do not have to become rude to become strong. You do not have to become emotionally unavailable to become wise. You do not have to stop caring about people. You simply have to stop making their approval the price of your peace. There will always be someone who misunderstands your growth. When you become less available, they may say you have changed. When you become more confident, they may say you are proud. When you stop tolerating disrespect, they may say you are difficult. But sometimes people criticize your growth because the old version of you was easier for them to manage. Do not allow that criticism to send you backward. Ask yourself whether your decision is honest, responsible, and aligned with your values. If it is, then stand in it. You may still listen. You may still learn. You may still correct yourself if necessary. But do not collapse merely because someone is uncomfortable with your clarity. Not everyone will understand your journey because not everyone knows the price you paid to become this version of yourself. They did not hear every internal battle. They did not feel every moment when you ignored your instincts to keep the peace. They did not carry the emotional weight you carried while trying to prove that you were worthy of respect. You do not need to become bitter toward those who misunderstand you. Release the need to convince them. Let your consistency speak. Let your character speak. Let your peaceful life speak. A woman becomes powerful when she understands that approval is pleasant, but it is not necessary for identity. She can appreciate support without depending on it. She can receive criticism without being destroyed by it. She can explain when wisdom requires it and remain silent when further words would only drain her. She is no longer asking, "How can I make everyone accept me?" She is asking, "Am I living truthfully, responsibly, and with self-respect?" That question leads her back to herself. And when a woman returns to herself, she stops begging the world to confirm what she has finally learned within. Her worth was never waiting for someone else's permission. Silence becomes powerful only when it is guided by wisdom. There is a kind of silence that heals, and there is another kind that harms. There is a silence that protects peace, and there is a silence that creates confusion. There is a silence that comes from emotional maturity, and there is a silence that is used as punishment. The woman who truly understands herself learns the difference. She does not become silent because she wants people to suffer. She does not withdraw her words to manipulate, control, or frighten anyone. She does not use silence as a weapon to make others beg for her attention. That is not strength. That is unhealed emotion expressing itself indirectly. Healthy silence begins with clarity. It is the decision to stop participating in conversations that have lost respect, purpose, and honesty. It is the wisdom to recognize when communication is no longer producing understanding. It is the courage to pause before anger turns into words that cannot be taken back. Many people believe that strength means having an immediate response. They think power is found in always having the final word. But emotional discipline teaches something deeper. The strongest person in the room is often the one who knows when not to react. Anybody can respond from anger. Anybody can raise their voice. Anybody can send a message in the heat of frustration. But it takes maturity to stop, breathe, observe, and ask, will my response improve this situation, or will it only add more noise? The silent woman begins to understand that not every emotion requires immediate expression. Her feelings are valid, but they do not have to become reckless decisions. Her anger may reveal that a boundary has been crossed. Her disappointment may reveal that trust has been damaged. Her sadness may reveal that something important has been lost. But she gives herself time to understand what she feels before she decides what to do. That pause becomes one of her greatest strengths. Silence gives her space to separate truth from impulse. It allows her to see the difference between what happened and what fear is telling her happened. It helps her avoid reacting to assumptions, old wounds, and temporary emotions. She learns that a delayed response is not weakness. Sometimes it is the most responsible response available. There are conversations where speaking is necessary. Healthy relationships cannot survive without honesty. Silence should never be used to avoid responsibility, escape accountability, or leave people emotionally confused. If she has caused harm, she must be willing to acknowledge it. If a relationship can be repaired through respectful conversation, she should not hide behind silence. If someone needs clarity about a decision that directly affects them, maturity may require an explanation. But there is a difference between giving clarity and repeatedly defending the same boundary. There is a difference between communicating and being forced to prove your worth. There is a difference between listening to a sincere question and responding to someone who only wants to argue. The silent woman learns to identify intention. Some people ask questions because they genuinely want to understand. Others ask questions because they want another opportunity to pressure her. Some people listen to her answer. Others wait for her to become tired enough to change it. Some people respect her truth even when they disagree. Others treat disagreement as permission to attack her character. When she recognizes these patterns, she stops wasting emotional energy. She says what must be said clearly, respectfully, and honestly. Then she allows her decision to stand. She no longer believes that repeating herself will create respect where respect is absent. She no longer assumes that longer explanations will produce better understanding. She understands that people who value her will seek clarity without demanding that she abandon herself. Her silence becomes a boundary. It says, "I will not continue a conversation filled with insults." It says, "I will not argue with someone who has already decided to misunderstand me." It says, "I will return to this discussion when both of us can speak respectfully." It says, "My peace is not available for endless negotiation." This is not arrogance. It is emotional order. A woman without emotional order can be controlled by provocation. Anyone who understands her triggers can influence her behavior. A disrespectful comment can steal her entire day. A false accusation can pull her into hours of explanation. A cruel message can cause her to abandon her priorities just to defend herself. But when she develops discipline, provocation loses its power. She realizes that another person's behavior does not have to determine her response. She cannot always control what is said about her, but she can control whether she participates. She cannot control another person's interpretation, but she can remain grounded in her own values. She cannot prevent every misunderstanding, but she can refuse to destroy her peace trying to correct everyone. This kind of silence creates space for observation. When she stops explaining, she begins noticing. She notices who respects her boundary without demanding a performance. She notices who only becomes kind when they want access again. She notices who apologizes with changed behavior and who only offers words. She notices who values her presence and who merely values her usefulness. Constant talking can hide patterns. Silence reveals them. When you stop filling every uncomfortable space with explanations, people begin showing you who they are. Some will approach with respect. Some will become more aggressive. Some will disappear because they were only connected to the version of you that had no boundaries. Do not fear what healthy silence reveals. Revelation is not rejection, it is information. The purpose of silence is not to make others chase you. The purpose is to give you enough space to hear yourself clearly. It allows you to reconnect with your values, your goals, and your emotional truth. It teaches you that peace does not always come from resolving every conflict. Sometimes peace comes from accepting that certain conflicts will never produce a healthy resolution. The silent woman is not powerless. She is choosing where her power will be invested. She speaks where honesty is welcomed. She listens where mutual respect exists. She apologizes where accountability is necessary. She explains where clarity can strengthen connection. But she becomes silent where words are repeatedly twisted, mocked, or used against her. Her silence is not the absence of courage. It is courage under control. It is the strength to walk away from chaos without creating more chaos. It is the confidence to let a misunderstanding exist without allowing it to define her. It is the wisdom to know that not every battle deserves her voice. She is not trying to punish anyone. She is protecting the quality of her mind. She is protecting the condition of her heart. She is protecting the direction of her life. And when she finally speaks, her words carry weight because they are no longer wasted on conversations that have no destination. When a woman begins establishing boundaries, she often discovers something surprising. Not everyone was attached to her heart. Some people were attached to her availability. They were comfortable when she always answered, always forgave, always adjusted, and always explained herself. Her endless patience allowed them to avoid responsibility. Her fear of disappointing others made it easy for them to expect more than they were willing to give. But the moment she says, "This is no longer acceptable," the true condition of the relationship begins to appear. Boundaries do not create unhealthy behavior in people. They reveal what was already present. A healthy person may not always like your boundary. They may feel disappointed, confused, or even frustrated. But they will still recognize your right to make decisions about your time, energy, emotional health, and personal space. They will ask questions respectfully. They will listen to your perspective. They will seek understanding rather than control. Most importantly, they will not punish you simply because you said no. An unhealthy person responds differently. They may accuse you of changing. They may call you selfish, cold, difficult, or ungrateful. They may remind you of everything they have ever done for you in an attempt to make you feel indebted. They may withdraw affection, create guilt, spread confusion, or increase pressure until you become exhausted enough to surrender your boundary. This is why boundaries are educational. They teach you what words alone cannot. People can say they respect you, but your boundary tests whether that respect is real. People can say they love you, but your refusal reveals whether their love includes freedom or requires obedience. People can claim they want the best for you, but their reaction to your growth shows whether they truly support your development or only support the version of you that remains convenient to them. You must understand that access to your life is not an automatic right. It is a responsibility. The closer someone comes to your heart, the greater their responsibility to handle your trust with care. Love without responsibility becomes entitlement. Friendship without respect becomes exploitation. Family connection without boundaries can become emotional captivity. You are not dishonoring people by requiring respectful behavior. You are teaching them how to remain connected to you in a healthy way. Some women fear that boundaries will destroy their relationships, but healthy relationships are not destroyed by honesty. They are strengthened by it. A genuine relationship can survive a respectful no. It can survive disagreement. It can survive moments when one person needs rest, space, or time to think. It may require adjustment, but it will not require one person to disappear so that the other can remain comfortable. A relationship that survives only when you abandon yourself is not healthy connection. It is dependence upon your self-neglect. You must stop believing that love means unlimited access. Love requires care, but it also requires wisdom. Love listens. Love adjusts. Love respects limits. Love does not demand that you continually prove your loyalty by tolerating behavior that damages your confidence and peace. Your boundary may sound like, "I will continue this conversation when we can speak respectfully." It may sound like, "I cannot take responsibility for something that belongs to you." It may sound like, "I need time before I give you an answer." It may sound like, "I care about you, but I cannot continue participating in this pattern." These statements are not cruel, they are clear. Clarity is kindness because it removes confusion. It tells people what you can offer and what you cannot accept. It prevents hidden resentment from growing inside you. It gives the other person an opportunity to make a responsible choice. They can respect the boundary and continue building the relationship, or they can resist it and reveal that what they wanted was not mutual connection, but unrestricted access. However, boundaries are not merely words. A boundary without consistent action becomes a suggestion. When you repeatedly announce a limit but abandon it under pressure, people learn that persistence will eventually defeat your decision. They may not respect your first no because your past behavior taught them to wait for your guilt to speak louder than your wisdom. This is why you must honor the limits you establish. You do not need to shout. You do not need to threaten. You do not need to deliver a long speech every time someone crosses the line. You state the boundary clearly, and then you adjust your participation accordingly. If the conversation becomes disrespectful, you end it. If someone repeatedly misuses private information, you reduce what you share. If a person continually ignores your time, you change your availability. Your actions must communicate what your words have already explained. Understand that the purpose of a boundary is not to control another person. You cannot force people to change. You can only decide what you will do when a certain behavior occurs. A demand says, "You must become the person I want." A boundary says, "You are free to choose your behavior, but I am also free to choose my response. That is emotional maturity. The silent woman stopped explaining herself because she recognized that repeated explanations were not producing respect. She had already communicated. She had already clarified. She had already given opportunities for change. Eventually, she understood that continuing to defend the boundary was distracting her from enforcing it. She no longer felt responsible for making everyone comfortable with her growth. When people said she had changed, she agreed. She had changed from a woman who feared rejection into a woman who feared losing herself. She had changed from someone who begged for understanding into someone who communicated once and observed behavior. She had changed from someone who carried everyone's emotions into someone who understood that adults are responsible for managing their own reactions. Your boundaries will reveal who truly respects you. The right people may need time to adjust, but they will not require you to betray yourself. They will learn, communicate, and grow with you. Those who leave because they can no longer misuse your kindness are not being driven away by your strength. They are being exposed by it. Never apologize for becoming clear. Your boundaries are not walls against love. They are gates of wisdom. They do not prevent healthy people from entering your life. They prevent unhealthy patterns from ruling it. They protect your peace, preserve your dignity, and ensure that the relationships you keep are built upon mutual respect rather than fear, guilt, or emotional exhaustion.